Well, good evening, YouTube. It's been a long time since I've done a video. Lots happened in the last 7 months, which has been approximately how long it's been since I've made one of these. I worked for Target for a while, let that job go, but then picked up a really awesome full-time job, which I'm extremely thankful for. It does pay all the bills, mostly. Not quite enough to move out yet, but working my way there. Let's see here. I'm going to be a dues-paying member of the Log Cabin Republicans. That's really exciting. I'm looking forward to that. Let's see here. I really want to go back to school and finish my teaching degree and maybe get some teaching behind me. This requires me jumping through a lot of hoops, which, quite frankly, seems like it's more trouble than it's worth sometimes. But then I think about being able to touch the lives of students with, with history and civics, and I hope to make some good citizens someday, or at least aid in the process of making some good citizens someday. Let's see here. I know some questions have probably come up, I don't know about recently, but definitely, as a whole, about the place of religion in politics, and that's always a touchy subject because there are people that are all over the spectrum on this issue. Some people are, well, I'll just use the plain word properly, fascist, where they'd like to make law that's quote-unquote biblical, and then, use legal sanction to enforce a code of behavior. And by the strictest definition, that really is a fascist way of thinking. There are other people who are like myself, which believe that personal liberty is preferable, because I believe that forced codes of behavior don't work. I think that people will do what they want to do, whether it's legal or not. The best thing we can do is appeal to people's humanity and appeal to people's morality, that they do the right thing. And it's something that everyone should be striving to do anyway. So, given that, I think it's important, though, that we talk about some really important issues that have been on my mind for the last 7 months as I've been following the news and following the campaign, which is just one big cluster mess of fail on both sides, really. I do intend to vote for Romney in the fall, because, well, quite frankly, there's no one else to really support. However, I think Romney does bring a lot of good qualities to the office, and I look forward to his campaign really going full speed ahead now that Newt Gingrich is out of the race finally, and Rick Santorum. I was really happy to see both of them drop out of the race. I don't think they were good candidates, and so Romney is the guy for me, and you all should support him too. But he's had some gaffes, he's had some fails, but you know what? We're human, we make mistakes, and we gotta just chug along as best we possibly can. I think some important things to talk about, though, about issues such as abortion, gay marriage, and these other fun social issues that tend to come to light, especially on the campaign trail. They're very important to Republicans, especially. So I think it's important that we kind of nip these issues in the butt. And I want to give you a kind of centered point of view. I mean, my channel is called The Right Center for the reason that I believe in being fair and open-minded about issues. I don't believe being a centrist is a weakness, but a strength, because it means that I'm willing to hear all sides of an issue. And so, here goes abortion. I am a Christian, so I believe that abortion is not a favorable thing to do. However, this is where my politics and my religious beliefs conflict. I believe life does begin at conception. However, I don't believe that that means that the said fetus in the womb gets priority over the mother. That doesn't mean that the fetus's life is any less important. However, it is not right for the law to force a woman to carry a child to term if she decides she does not want it. This does not mean that I endorse or recommend abortion as any kind of procedure that you should do. Far from it. If someone close to me came up and asked my opinion about this, I would tell them exactly what I just told you. I believe life begins at conception. I believe it's sacred. I believe there's a purpose, and you should carry your pregnancy to term. Even if you don't want it, I know there are millions of parents out there who would love to raise a little girl or a little boy as their own. And while this is extremely painful to do for a woman, I think that it should be at the very least be explored as an option. It's just too. I don't believe it's good. I don't think it's smart to waste a life arbitrarily. In the area of the mother's life, I definitely understand. We are imbued with a natural instinct of self-preservation. So when we hear that you are dying and you will die if you carry this to term, is an extremely hard thing to hear, because you are just now at that moral crossroad of, what do I do? I cannot in good conscience tell a mother that is expecting that you are required by law to carry your child to term, no ifs, ands, or buts about it, and if you do, we will charge you for murder. No, that is absolutely absurd. It is unreasonable and illogical to do so. I do not endorse the conservative viewpoint on abortion. I never will. The Republican legislatures across the country that have been trying to restrict abortion into non-existence are wrong. They are immoral. I believe that it is an abhorrent attack on women's rights as a whole, women deserve this decision for themselves. I do not endorse forcing insurance plans to pay for it. Definitely not. I do not endorse forcing the taxpayers to pay for it either, because, again, we have varying moral views on the issue. Therefore, it is best to just not pay for them with taxpayer dollars, because there's no way to differentiate yes from no. Exception to that, obviously, is the mother's life is in danger. That's a perfectly reasonable, reason to pay for an abortion if a mother is going to die, definitely. And same thing with rape, same thing with incest. Any of those issues that, where we have an issue where the mother did not choose to have a child, or the mother did not choose to get pregnant, consideration should always be made. When it comes to issues, of just elective abortion, I don't believe so. I believe other alternatives should be explored. However, again, up to the woman to decide for herself. I would hope, and I just hope, that you would talk to your family and your loved ones and your friends and get their perspectives on the issue and decide what the best what the best decision for yourself is to do in this case. If you're a woman, obviously. It is not up for any person to tell you what to do with your body. Ultimately, it is your decision to make, and whatever is right that you feel is right for you, I would fully support. So, it's a hard position to justify both ways, because I have my beliefs about life conflicting with my beliefs about justice in this particular issue, and it is an extremely difficult issue to justify on either end. Again, I fully support legalized abortion for the only reason that it's not moral and ethical to force someone to have a child against their will. That is equivalent to rape, in my opinion. So again, that's my view on abortion. Again, I'm hoping that people will consider this issue carefully when they debate it. Taking an absolutist view on the issue, I don't think is constructive. It doesn't further the discussion or the views in the discussion. And I think it becomes two extremes just spouting their point of views, and no one is willing to listen because it's viewed as compromise. And God forbid we compromise with each other, because that would just be too much. I mean, that would just stop my heart right there in its tracks. So, moving along, the issue of gay marriage, which in Washington State, where I live, has become an extremely popular issue. Just recently, our state's legislature passed the gay marriage law, which is set to go into effect in June, unless the opponents can get enough signatures to put it on the ballot, in which case the voters will have a decision to overturn it or uphold it. I support this law, albeit it was not the way that I would have done it personally. I prefer I prefer a more phased approach to this issue, because I believe that giving consideration to the institution of marriage is respectful and polite. There are a great many number of people in our society who believe marriage is sacred, and I completely understand that point of view because I live in that point of view, definitely. So, I think when it comes to gay marriage, I reluctantly support the right as a whole. I understand the position of both sides of the argument because, again, I'm a part of both sides of the argument. Just like with abortion, in gay marriage's case, same thing. I do believe marriage is sacred between a man and a woman. However, at the same time, there are many legal disparities with the institution. There are many characteristics of homosexual and heterosexual couples that are extremely similar in many ways. When we look at characteristics of the two types of couples, we see a pooling of resources. We see the pair setting common goals. We see a couple desire to raise a family, whether through adoption or natural reproduction, it doesn't matter, or artificial reproduction in the cases of some types of pairs. I think this issue is complicated. I think it is a war of cultures, definitely. But I think that also the gay community needs to recognize that this institution is indeed held sacred by a demographic of people. I think that some in the gay community understand this and try to walk on eggshells about it, as to not upset this particular, that demographic that values marriage as one man, one woman. Again, though, I think that this issue is complicated in that we are discussing a cultural value that is very touchy and very precious to a great many number of people. However, I also understand, the LGBT point of view. Again, I'm part of that community, so I've taken it upon myself to try and listen to both sides of the issue, and in hopes to bring a little peace to the issue. I think it's extremely important that we try to find a common ground on this particular issue, because there are many legal issues that need to be resolved about this phenomenon in our society. With gay marriage, we have issues where couples cannot file taxes together, or couples cannot start collecting their partner's Social Security when they die, and other issues that are, that is a result of the Federal Defense of Marriage Act, which is, in my particular point of view, I believe it is unconstitutional in that it is an unexcusable expansion of federal power over an institution that is clearly reserved for states to decide for themselves. If a state says someone is married, then that set of persons is indeed married, with no exception. Definitely governing the way that marriage is defined, as two people, perfectly reasonable. Polygamy is not an acceptable practice. Bestiality is not an acceptable practice by any social view in this society. Other societies I'm not going to judge because I don't know. But in regards to issues of monogamy, marriages between two persons, domestic partnerships are between two persons, however you want to phrase the term, it's an issue that we can't ignore anymore, and we can't put on the back burner, because it's important that we discuss these issues in a constructive and reasonable way. Like I said, I do reluctantly support the marriage law that was passed at the state legislature. I was proud to say I watched it live on TV, on TVW, which is our local, it's like our Washington's version of CNN. And I got to watch the extremely impassioned testimony of Maureen Walsh. She's a Republican congresswoman from the district that represents Walla Walla in that area. It was extremely moving to hear her very personal point of view on the issue, having a lesbian daughter, and the desire to throw her a wedding because she loves her daughter so much. Hearing her testimony about how her daughter was basically her daughter was her father's kid. Like they were so close, and that they're not around anymore. And so I understand that. I was deeply moved by her testimony because it is so incredibly personal, and you can debate the semantics of it all you want, but nothing trumps a personal, heartfelt experience as you watch Maureen Walsh discuss on the floor of the People's House in Olympia. And it was an extremely moving experience. I was really, really moved by hearing her testimony. If you want to watch it, it is available on YouTube. Just type in Maureen Walsh, and then gay, and then house, and you'll probably find it with those those keywords. I encourage everybody to watch that testimony because it was so incredible and so personal and so heartfelt. With that said, I want people, I want especially Republicans and conservatives out there, I want you to consider something. God has touched everyone's lives in very unique ways. Being a Christian, I believe that ultimately everyone is responsible for their own conduct, for their own behavior, for their own salvation, and for their own walk through life. As one of my friends in Christ told me once, that it is not the journey that's important. Well, actually, okay, let me try that again. Okay, the journey is important, definitely, but God has given us the capacity to choose the path we walk in life to get us to the end. Whatever moves our passions, whatever moves our spirit, whatever convicts our heart is perfectly acceptable as long as it fulfills God's ultimate plan, which is to be an example in this world as a loving member of society, to engage in the greatest commandment, which is to love God with all your heart, mind, body, and soul, and the second greatest commandment, which is to love man as much as you possibly can. Pouring out your spirit and God's spirit on others, being an example not just when people are looking, but being an example when people are not looking, being that quote salt of the earth, or that beacon, or that city on a hill, or whatever metaphor you wish to use to describe our interaction and role in this world. I do not believe using the law to enforce this is right. I believe that morality and spirituality are something that are extremely personal, and I believe that using law to try and enforce behavior takes the joy and the rewards from it. So those of you who favor Pat Robertson's point of view on a lot of these issues should probably go back and reevaluate what you believe and why you believe it, and why does it matter to you who does what. Whether someone is a Wiccan or a Mormon or an atheist or an agnostic or a Buddhist, we serve this world. And what I mean by that is we serve the people of this world, because ultimately that is our greatest commission. It's not to beat people over the head with a Bible and say, "Thou art damned." It is to bring people a message of hope and joy that you are loved, you are wanted, you are unique, and here's why. So when I put a status on Facebook the other day, and it was I found it amusing because of the pun, and I love puns, so you'll have to forgive me if I crack any later on. But my liberal friends love to ask me, "Well, you're gay. Why do you not vote Democrat?" And I reply that I don't swing that way. So if you can appreciate that, then there's hope for you yet. I've only voted for Democrats twice, and once was for governor of this state in the last election in 2008. Many criticisms are given to Chris Gregoire for her work in this state. But you know what? I'm willing to give Chris Gregoire a pass because really, she's just trying to do the best she can given what she was handed. She didn't have the 8 years of prosperity that Governor Locke had. She didn't have an ideal economy when she took office in 2000, in the 2000 governor race, or the 2004 governor race. I'm sorry. She did the best she could given what she had, and I applaud her for surviving this long and not wanting to pull her hair out, which I'm sure she wanted to several times. So I applaud Chris Gregoire for her work. She's been a wonderful governor for the most part. She had her hiccups, but what administrator doesn't have their hiccups? So, but realistically, I voted for her because of her character. I felt she was a good person, and I felt led that she still had a lot of things to do in this state. I believe she's acted admirably and morally and justly during her time in office. And so, Chris Gregoire, my hat's off to you for being a very wonderful governor, and you will be missed. The governor election coming up with Jay Inslee and Rob McKenna proves to be a very interesting one. Given the players involved. We have Jay Inslee, who represented one of the districts up on the peninsula, and he recently resigned his seat to focus on his run for governor, passing the bill onto the district for replacing him, which is going to come up to almost $1 million to re-elect someone to stay in office for 6 months. Rob McKenna, I am on the fence with Rob McKenna, but I will probably reluctantly support him. He is appealing to the conservative base of the party, which disturbs me a little bit because, quite frankly, the conservative base in the party and I do not agree on many issues. But again, if everyone agreed with everybody, this would be quite a boring world, and I would have no way of talking to you about these issues. So, again, when you consider your vote and you consider your positions on these issues, I encourage you to talk to people who are actually intimately involved in these issues. It's only by communicating these ideas and these points of view to others who don't agree with you do you not grow. So I want to challenge you all who have listened to my broadcast tonight to go out and talk to people who you do not agree with, and listen to what they have to say, listen to their reasoning, listen to their point of view, and then educate yourself on the issues that you agree on and you favor, and then come back and have a constructive conversation over coffee and dinner or drinks or whatever, preferably not too many drinks, otherwise you end up just talking in circles. Alright, YouTube, it has been real. I wish you all a great night / great morning if you're on the East Coast, because it's now 3 a.m. Eastern Time, 12 Pacific Time, and I wish you a great and wonderful night.